I never thought changing my Wi-Fi password would lead to a full-blown police investigation, but welcome to my life. It all started when my internet started acting slower than a snail in molasses. I work from home, so a fast connection isn't just a luxury, it's a necessity. After a bit of digging, I found out the culprit. Half the neighborhood was piggybacking off my Wi-Fi. Seriously, I saw devices named Brenda's iPad, Kevin's gaming PC, and even Smith Family TV connected to my network. I was basically providing free internet for the entire block. Annoyed, but not wanting to cause a scene, I just reset my router, created a new, ridiculously complicated password, and thought that was the end of it. Oh, how wrong I was. The very next morning I was deep in a work meeting when I heard a frantic, aggressive pounding on my front door. It wasn't just a knock. It sounded like someone was trying to break the door down. I cautiously peeked through the peephole and saw her, Karen, the self-appointed queen of our homeowners association. Her face was red, her perm was practically vibrating with rage, and she was pointing a perfectly manicured finger right at my door. I opened it, a crack, and before I could even say hello, she started screaming, "What did you do to the internet? My grandkids can't watch their shows. I have important emails to send. You can't just turn off the community Wi-Fi." Community Wi-Fi? I was floored. I calmly explained that it was my private internet, that I pay the bill every month, and that I had every right to change my password. She wasn't having it. She puffed up her chest and declared, "I am the HOA president. Everything in this neighborhood is my business. You are selfishly hoarding the internet, and I will not stand for it." I tried to reason with her, showing her my internet bill with my name and address on it, but it was like talking to a brick wall. She insisted that because my signal reached her house, she was entitled to use it. The argument went in circles for about 10 minutes before she whipped out her phone. "That's it," she shrieked. "I'm calling the police. You're disrupting the peace and stealing community resources." I honestly thought she was bluffing. Who calls 911 over a Wi-Fi password? Karen, apparently. She actually dialed the number and started reporting a utility theft in a public disturbance. I just stood there, speechless, as she gave the operator my address. Then, with a smug look, she hung up and said, "They're on their way. We'll see who's right." About 15 minutes later, 2 police cars rolled up, lights flashing. My neighbors started peeking out their windows, and I could feel my face burning with embarrassment. 2 officers, a man and a woman, got out and walked up my driveway where Karen was already waiting, ready to give her dramatic performance. "Officers, thank goodness you're here," she wailed. "This man," she said, pointing at me, "has maliciously cut off the neighborhood's internet access. He's hoarding it for himself." The officers looked at me, then at her, clearly confused. Officer Miller, the male cop, asked me for my side of the story. I calmly explained the situation. It was my private Wi-Fi. I discovered unauthorized users, so I secured my network. I even offered to show them the bill again. Officer Davis, his partner, turned to Karen. "Ma'am, do you pay for this internet service?" Karen sputtered. "Well, no, but it's always been available. It's a community service," Officer Miller sighed. "Ma'am, that's not how it works. You can't use someone else's Wi-Fi without their permission. That's actually illegal. And calling 911 for this is a serious misuse of emergency services." He started to give her a stern lecture about tying up the emergency line. I thought that would be the end of it. She'd get a warning. I'd go back inside, and life would go on. But then, things took a very unexpected turn. While Officer Miller was talking to Karen, Officer Davis, who had a sharper eye, noticed something odd. Karen had a large, ornate fountain in her front yard, a feature she was particularly proud of. But Officer Davis saw a thick, black cable running from the fountain's pump, snaking discreetly along the side of her house, and then disappearing into a public utility box on the street. It was very clearly a makeshift and highly illegal electrical hookup. "Ma'am," Officer Davis said, cutting through Karen's complaints. "What's this cable for?" Karen's face went from angry red to ghost white in a split second. "Oh, that's nothing. Just some old wiring for the garden lights." But her voice was shaky and she couldn't meet the officer's gaze. The officers were not convinced. They walked over to inspect it more closely. It was exactly what it looked like. A homemade connection tapping directly into the city's power grid. She was stealing electricity to run her massive energy-guzzling fountain, likely for years. Officer Miller looked at his partner, then back at Karen. His entire demeanor changed. This was no longer about a petty Wi-Fi dispute. This was about felony theft of utilities. "Ma'am, you've been illegally tapping into the power grid," he asked, his voice now cold and serious. Karen started to stammer. "No, it was just my husband set it up years ago. I didn't know." Her excuses were weak and fell apart under the officer's questioning. They could tell she was lying. Stealing a few megabits of Wi-Fi is one thing, but stealing thousands of dollars worth of electricity is a whole other level. The irony was just delicious. Here she was, calling the cops on me for stealing an internet service she wasn't paying for, while she was literally stealing power from the entire city. The cops informed her that they would have to report this to the utility company and that she would be facing significant fines and potential criminal charges. The smug sense of victory on her face had completely vanished, replaced by sheer panic. Suddenly she turned to me, her eyes wide with desperation. "Please," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Please, Tell them it's a misunderstanding. I'll get my own internet, I promise. Just don't let them do this. She was actually begging me for mercy. Me, the person she had just tried to get arrested over a Wi-Fi password. I just looked at her and shook my head. Karen, I said, you called them. You're the one who wanted to see who's right. Looks like we found out. The officers took down her information, took photos of the illegal wiring, and told her to expect a visit from the power company's investigation unit. As they were leaving, Officer Miller gave me a little nod. Sorry for the disturbance, sir. You have a good day. And with that, they left. Karen just stood there in her driveway, next to her fountain of stolen electricity, looking completely defeated. The next day, a crew from the power company came and spent hours disconnecting her illegal setup and installing a meter that she'd now have to pay for. The fountain hasn't been on since. Word got around the neighborhood pretty fast. The story of Karen calling the cops over my Wi-Fi only to get busted for stealing electricity became an instant local legend. Her reign as the HOA tyrant came to a swift and embarrassing end. She had to step down as president, and I haven't heard a peep from her since. She can't even look me in the eye when we pass on the street. And the best part, my internet has never been faster. It just goes to show you, sometimes when you try to create a problem for someone else, you end up exposing a much bigger problem of your own. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've got any crazy neighbor stories, drop them in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more. See you next time.